Hey everyone, it's wonderful to see so many of you joining us today, so many familiar faces on the list. Thank you all for being here. If you don't know me, my name is Che Green. I am the founder and original executive director of Faunalytics, which was over 25 years ago when we were known as the Humane Research Council. Today, our team has grown quite a bit, both in terms of resources and staff size, but our mission has remained largely the same, which is that we exist to fill the essential research gaps in the movement and to amplify the impact of animal advocates globally. And today I am excited to be joined by the Faunalytics leadership team, including Executive Director Brooke, Research Director Allison, and Resource Director Carl. And together we'll have a look at what the organization has been working on in the recent past, the present, and the near future. We'll also have an opportunity to dive into any questions that you have, so please do add them to the chat and we will address them in the Q&A at the end of the call. So first off, joining us is Brooke Haggerty, Executive Director, who will be talking about what we accomplished in 2025. Please take it away, Brooke.
Thank you so much, Jay. Hi, everyone. My name is Brooke Haggerty, and I'm proud to join you today as Faunalytics Executive Director. I wanted to start by sharing my appreciation for taking time to join us. I see so many familiar faces in the chat and some new faces too. And your dedication, whether you are a donor or a fellow advocate or a partner organization that we've worked with before, that's what makes our work possible and meaningful. So thank you for joining us and for everything that you do. So, this year, with your support, Faunalytics has conducted more research and resources than ever before. By the end of this month, we will have published 13 new original studies and analyses focused on everything from political advocacy to international advocacy to assessing impact and strengthening movement capacity. So, for example, on the political front, we published studies on voter response to a pro-animal anti-subsidy candidate. And good news, a lot of it is really positive for us in the movement. One of our most popular studies this year was our framework for effective communication with political staffers in the US. On the international scale, we worked with Good Growth to conduct a study on messaging, plant-based diets, and products in Southeast Asia, and on scoping collaboration across social movement lines in Southeast Asia, which is really exciting. In terms of thinking about growing movement capacity and engaging the next generation of advocates, we did a case study of food systems education and students' subsequent impact. This was in collaboration with New Roots Institute, and I see a lot of New Roots folks in the chat today. So, hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. We also did a study called Green and Humane, looking at engaging Generation Z in animal and environmental causes. And we also did research thinking about how to balance inclusivity and equity with animal-oriented missions. So we really are thinking quite a bit about growing our movement across the spectrum. And this is just half of our research that we've put out this year. So make sure you check out our completed projects page to see all of the good studies we've produced. Additionally, on top of all of our original research, we've added to our ever-growing research library. We add about 200 new study summaries each year, and we have over 6,000 resources in our library at this point. We hit that milestone this year. We also directly supported over 100 advocates and organizations one-on-one via our free office hours. So if you are an advocate who ever needs support finding data, or maybe you're looking to conduct your own research, please take us up on our free office hours. We love talking to you and getting to know you and helping you in any way we can. We also delivered over 31 research presentations to advocates around the world. And of course, we hosted our fourth annual virtual research symposium, Fauna Connections, which brought in over 450 advocates from 61 different countries in a day of learning, which was very exciting for us. If you missed Fauna Connections, all of those are actually available on our YouTube, so check us out. So that's just a little peek of what we accomplished this year. And we're really excited about all the other little things we got into. We have our year in review coming out this week. So be sure to check it out and to learn the extent to which we were able to make an impact on the movement in 2025. But we are also excited to look to the future, and we're thinking about 2026. I'm really thrilled to share we just published our brand new strategic plan. And over the next 5 years, Faunalytics' mission to empower animal advocates with research is going to be achieved through 4 key interconnected strategic priorities. So that's coordinate, curate, collaborate, and capture. What does this mean? So our first priority is to coordinate, which focuses on catalyzing more coordination specifically within the animal protection research community. This is crucial because greater coordination, particularly earlier on at the planning stages of research, is really going to strengthen the collective value of our work and prevent duplication of efforts, which saves resources. So we're really excited to do a lot more work to ensure the entire research ecosystem is working together in a coordinated manner. Second, we want to curate research to enhance access to high quality, context relevant research for advocates. This means doing more to synthesize findings across research studies so that advocates don't have to spend as much time doing that, expanding our multilingual resource collection, improving accessibility of data through advanced technology and AI features so that advocates can find and apply insights they need right at their fingertips. We're really going to work hard at making sure you are not spending too much time on research. We're giving you exactly what you need in the formats you need. Our third priority is to collaborate. We want to accelerate the production and application of research by partnering really closely with organizations in key geographies. So we think that deepening our collaborative efforts is really going to ensure that the research we develop is created with those who will use it, ultimately maximizing its application and use. And so our focus is going to be teaming up with organizations in the US, Brazil, China, and India in the year ahead. And finally, we want to capture our impact or better capture our impact by strengthening our evaluation processes. So this involves enhancing our MEL systems, so monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And our goal is to systematically track how our research is used and what outcomes it contributes to. We're already doing a lot with impact measurement, but we want to do even more to ensure that our research makes a difference off the page. So together, those four priorities are going to position Faunalytics as really the global hub for animal protection research. And our hope is that we will shape a more coordinated and evidence-driven and effective movement. So I really can't wait to dive into this work in the year ahead and look forward to any partnerships that may emerge because of it. Back to you, Che.
Amazing. Thank you, Brooke. I'm so excited. First off, the team should be so proud of what you all accomplished in 2025, and I'm personally very excited about the research plan for 2026. Also, a big fan of alliteration, so having all three C or four C's rather is exciting for me on a personal level. And just as a personal note to the community, the folks listening in today, I think about my two. I get sometimes asked about my biggest accomplishments, in the past 25 years. One of them, of course, is founding Faunalytics. The other is ensuring the success of Faunalytics beyond my involvement. And so much of that has been this leadership team, and in particular, Brooke. So thank you, Brooke, for allowing Faunalytics to continue and flourish into the organization that it is today. I am starting to see, I think, one or two questions pop in, but it's still mostly introductions in the chat. So please add your questions so that we can address them later. But for right now, next up, we have Dr. Allison Troy, who is Faunalytics Research Director, and she's going to chat a little bit more about our research priorities and agenda for 2026.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Che. I'm Allison. I'm the research director here at Faunalytics, and I feel so lucky to be the person that gets to unveil our research agenda for the upcoming year for all of you today. Before I get to the big reveal of our studies, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what our process is for choosing the studies that we do. This year, we've made significant updates to how we select studies, and all those updates are aimed at maximizing the impact and direct use of our research for you, the animal advocacy community. So every study that you'll see on our agenda today is the result of a rigorous multi-stage prioritization and review process that involves our board, our staff, subject matter experts, and most importantly, advocates, and a lot of feedback from advocates. We started this year with a list of 79 different ideas, and we systematically narrowed those down using a set of criteria relating to things like topic fit, actionability and impact, and feasibility. So Faunalytics research staff and our board research subcommittee really consider the full set of potential studies as a whole, and we try to ensure that we take on a set of studies that we can do well in a timely manner and to support as wide a range of advocates and animals as possible. So In addition to this rigorous process, we this year updated our prioritization process really to try to further maximize our impact. And so some of these updates this year included incorporating more feedback than ever. We conducted a series of focus groups with advocates in the US and in India. And those were really, really rich focus groups. Some of the specific ideas that were shared with us during those focus groups actually led to some of the studies that we'll be doing, that I'll be telling you about today. And those went so well that we're going to be expanding those focus groups to include even more advocate feedback and more geographies in 2026. Given a lot of demand from advocates that we've been hearing, we're also really explicitly prioritizing studies that include synthesis of knowledge on key topics that advocates care about to make it easier to understand, wide bodies of research rather than just individual studies in isolation. And then something that I'm very excited about to be more kind of flexible and nimble in our process and our decision-making processes. We've adopted kind of two phases of decision making in our prioritization process rather than just one. So I'll kind of describe to you in our studies, we're planning a phase one of studies in 2026 for the first half of next year. Those are studies that we will definitely do. And then for the second half of next year, we have like a plan in place for the studies that seem most promising, that are under consideration. But we're going to reassess in quarter one of 2026 to see if there are more pressing partner requests or other emergent needs from the movement that have kind of come onto our radar since then. And so basically, this two-stage process is meant to give us more flexibility and also more time to get feedback on our study ideas. So when we're considering studies, we're guided by a list of priority topics and geographies. And our updated strategic plan that Brooke told us all about has really given us a clear focus for 2026. So our research emphasizes farmed animals as a focus, and as well as capacity building for farmed animal advocates. And our audience is primarily nonprofit animal advocates. And in line with our strategic goals, all of our studies that we'll be doing, they target at least one or more of our key geographies. So those geographies are the United States, China, Brazil, and India. And we're really going to be prioritizing more collaborative work, especially in those international regions. So in terms of topics, our projects fall into four main areas of emphasis. So the first one is policy and legislative change efforts, especially in the US, and in response to often quickly changing circumstances in the political landscape. The second area of emphasis is effective tactics and strategies, and that includes understanding how these tactics and strategies can predict behavior change, as well as case studies of important wins and failures in our movement. Our third area of emphasis is understanding public perception about important animal-related issues. And that includes message testing and also tracking public opinion. The fourth area of emphasis is movement growth and increasing collaboration, and that includes projects like landscape mapping. And then finally, and this is a very broad umbrella, but kind of a broad area of emphasis for us is really just finding ways to directly address advocate needs in China, India, and Brazil, really listening to what advocates say they need and finding a way to do that with research. So those are our priority topics and geographies. So I think now I'm ready to tell you what studies we'll be doing next year. We have a really powerful research agenda ahead. I know that me and the entire team at Faunalytics is really excited about this agenda. So we've selected 10 finalists from an initial long list of 79 ideas. So I'm going to tell you first about our phase one studies. These are studies that we are definitely doing in the first half of next year, and those are 6 studies. The first study is testing the short-term and long-term impact of different approaches to advocacy. We are super excited about this longitudinal study. This is a follow-up study to our planting seed study, but in this follow-up follow-up study, we're going to look at both short-term impacts of advocacy as well as longer-term impacts. We're going to look at a wide variety of advocacy tactics, and we're also going to capture a wide variety of outcomes. So that's going to include diet change, but also things like consumer choices, advocacy engagement, and kind of a wide range of pro-animal behavior. So we're really excited to try to kind of address the gap in knowledge about long-term effects in the movement with this study. The second study we'll do is about co-creating a research agenda to improve evidence-based strategies in China. We'll be doing this study in collaboration with Good Growth. So based on strategic planning, this project really aims to bring advocates and researchers together in China to basically kind of co-set and co-create a clear, actionable research agenda based on their most pressing research questions. So this study is also designed as a model that can be replicated in other regions, particularly the Global South, where there's currently really limited knowledge of stakeholder needs. The third study we'll be doing is about Brazilian voters' response to pro-animal candidates. We're partnering with SVB for this study. We're very excited about this one too. This is kind of a follow-up to the study that we just released about US voter attitudes. But this research study will look at how hypothetical political candidates can effectively discuss animal welfare and farming subsidies in Brazil to gain popular voter support. The fourth study that we'll be doing is about understanding how India's Gen Z shapes family food choices. We're going to do this in partnership with FIAPO, and this came directly from advocates in India, really telling us how useful this data would be. So we're going to do a study where we look at understanding how India's Gen Z how they eat, what they value in their food choices, and also how their behaviors influence their parents' choices and household consumption patterns. So the idea with this study is that we hope to provide some actionable insights into how to leverage Gen Z as really household tastemakers for choosing plant-based foods in their families. Our fifth study is about public understandings of factory farming, and in particular, the term factory farming and what it means. Does the term mean what we think it means when we communicate with different parts of the American public? So we're going to assess whether the general public in the United States understands the term factory farming in the same way that advocates do, and if it's more effective than potential other terms that could be used. And so it's our hope that this study would directly inform communication and messaging strategies. And then the sixth study is a synthesis study we're really excited about. This came from a lot of feedback from advocates. We're calling this study Going Vegan, How Common Is It? This is going to be a desk research project that will compile and synthesize existing global data on the prevalence and trends of veganism, as well as related diets like vegetarianism and flexitarianism, and how these numbers may be shifting and changing globally. So the findings and interactive infographics will be vital for informing advocacy strategies and highlighting data gaps in the movement. We're also going to scope the possibility of updating this every year as a lasting resource. So those are our locked in, ready to go studies in our phase 1 for next year. For phase 2, I have 4 studies to tell you about next. These are currently under consideration, but they're flexible, and we're going to kind of reassess these in the first quarter of next year. So we're very open to feedback about these ideas. So the first idea is pro-animal versus pro-meat messaging in the eyes of voters. So in this study, we would first use desk research to identify common opposition messaging. And then we conduct an experiment to test and identify pro-animal messages that outperform the opposition messaging. And so the idea here is that this exploration could really help inform how advocates approach counter messaging, particularly in the political arena. The second potential study is how recent federal government cuts affect animals. This would be a US-based study where we look at first using desk research to identify and really document how recent federal hiring and spending cuts in the United States, how that's impacting animals. And then we would survey the public to assess how the public feels about these cuts and how they're directly affecting animals. The third idea is basically a subgroup deep dive on understanding openness to pro-animal actions. And so in the past week, did a study called Different Strokes for Different Folks, which really looked at how openness to various pro-animal actions varied across demographic groups like age and race. That data set is incredibly rich. There's a lot more fine-grained kind of subgroup analysis that can be done. And so doing this project would really be guided by advocate interests and needs, where we can do more detailed demographic breakdowns. So for example, we could look at how attitudes in key subgroups like Black college students, for example, or women in rural areas, how those kinds of attitudes might differ, with the idea that these insights might really help advocates working with different demographic groups in the United States. And then the fourth study on our phase 2 research agenda is understanding advocacy pathways in Southeast Asia's traditional markets. So this would combine desk research and potential interviews to map who controls wet markets in Southeast Asia, and would aim to generate actionable insights and provide much needed information for advocates to understand the food system in that region. That study would be conducted in partnership with Good Growth. So that is our research agenda so far for 2026. I have not been keeping up with the comments as they've been rolling in while I've been talking, but I know that our team is very excited to hear feedback about this agenda. While you're all here, I think we'd love to hear your thoughts, and in particular, anyone who wants to drop a comment in the chat to tell us which upcoming research project you're most excited about. So there is a list of all the 10 that I just presented, and I know we'd love to know what folks are really psyched to see. And I will pull back up my comments box that I had minimized. Okay, I see some interest in social media and its impact in diet change. Okay, that's exciting. Ooh, okay. M. Blanchard, you are interested in knowing about government cuts, federal cuts? We are looking for more feedback on that one. So we would love for you to get in touch and talk to us about that, because that's a study I'm potentially very excited about too. I think the other thing we're eager to hear from folks on this call is there anything that's missing on the research agenda that we've presented? Is there some pressing topic that you would love to know more about? Or is there a study question not represented here that you would just love to see us study? Drop that in the comments too, especially because we are reassessing in Q1 of next year. We will have lots of room for incorporating feedback. Oh, Jessica Cruz says the factoring farming one is super, super exciting. Thank you, Jessica. We're excited about that one too. Carly, thank you for taking notes. All right, this is great. I think at this point, turn it back over to Che.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. You and the research team have your work cut out for you next year, but it's all exciting stuff. And in addition to the topics, I'm just excited about the approach because I think it makes us more nimble and flexible going forward, which I think is important not only for Faunalytics, but for the advocates that we serve, of course. For anyone on the call who doesn't know, Allison joined us in just this year, actually in January 2025, very much hit the ground running, helped us ramp up our research agenda, get caught up on some studies, along with some help with Carly, and just very excited to have you taking the lead, Allison. So thank you. Next up, we have our certainly not least but last executive leader speaker, Carl Orzechowski, who is our resource director. I've been working with Carl for over 11 years now as part of the Faunalytics team. He is our longest serving team member, so thank you and congratulations, Carl. And Carl is going to, he not only has done investigations on his own in the past, but also having worked with Faunalytics so long, has a very deep understanding of sort of the effective use of data, which I think makes him the perfect lead for something like our investigations index, which is what he's about to talk about, in addition to just our sort of research library priorities and plans for 2026. So, Carl, please take it from here.
Thanks so much, Che. And thank you to everyone who's here joining us. It's so exciting to just see the comments section so lively. And as Che mentioned, I'm the longest serving faunalist. If you have been following Faunalytics for any time in the past decade, you likely recognize me. You've connected with me about finding data in our library, or you've seen me at conferences. One of the most common comments I get is, "You're the cartoon with the hair." That's me. After 11 years, I'm still here because I truly love the work that Faunalytics does, and I'm still as excited as ever to serve animal advocates' information needs. In 2025, we made some small but important improvements to our website, some of which you may have noticed and others you might not have. I'm a big website nerd and I love doing things behind the scenes. And one of the things that we significantly improved this year was the speed of our website search, which is one of those things that you may have noticed if you tried it beforehand and, we're waiting for 5 or 10 seconds to get something. With 6,000 entries and growing, our library is a big undertaking. And so we refined the way our site search happens under the hood. And now virtually any search term will serve results in a matter of a second or two. Uh, and in 2026, we're planning some really exciting improvements to the way our website works. So we'll be undertaking a user experience audit in order to better understand what's working and what isn't in our navigation and menu, and making adjustments to ensure that our resources stay accessible in as few clicks as possible. One of the things that maybe not keeps me up at night, but that I think about a lot is reducing the number of clicks between you and the data you're looking for. We're also currently working on a project that will bring instant synthesis of any topic in Faunalytics Research Library. Searching our site will give you an overview of the subject in an easily digestible format, as well as listing all of the relevant resources. And in addition to this, we'll be making some long-awaited updates to our most popular resources, like the Faunalytics Fundamentals, and of course, our global slaughter statistics, which we're now updating annually. But as Che mentioned, one of the things that we're really excited about is the new investigations index. And I am going to share my screen so you can see that. So right now you should be seeing a browser screen. This is one of the projects I'm most excited about for 2026. This is a brand new resource that we're calling the Investigations Index. And this came about because for a long time, the animal movement has struggled to capture the impact of investigative work. We sort of know intuitively that investigations and their resulting campaigns are really important, but that impact has traditionally been very difficult to measure. And I know this very well because I used to be an investigator myself, and I've seen investigations both really succeed greatly and also fail. So a while ago, I started thinking about how we could square this circle, and I conceptualized what we're calling the Investigations Index. The purpose of it is to serve as a comprehensive database of as many publicly released animal industry investigations as possible, and to do it under a universal common set of data points. So each entry in the database will include basic information about the investigation, such as the country, the region, the company, the industry. And more importantly, it's going to include information about whether the investigation received media coverage, resulted in any legislative action, or otherwise impacted the company or the industry in question. And by aggregating this information across hundreds or thousands of investigations from around the world, we'll be able to better understand patterns in what kind of work results in the best impact. And my hope is that it will make for a more robust investigation culture and better support for investigators in the field. So as you can see, in the browser, I've pulled up, each investigation is going to be represented by a card. It will have extra information in it, and it's going to be searchable and sortable in a database. So you'll be able to look at investigations by year, for example. You'll be able to then, filter by anything else you want. For example, you could filter by the organization. Of course, this is only a smattering of investigations now. The final prototype will contain about 200, and then from there, the final version will likely contain somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 investigations for you to explore and to analyze. Additionally, we're going to provide some initial analysis, as you can see in this tab up here, Currently, it's empty, but when the investigations index is launched, you're going to be able to read our initial analysis, and the full data set will be available publicly so that you and your organizations are able to do your own analysis as well. And so that's a quick preview of some of the things that were some of the things to look forward to in our research library. But of course, you don't have to go on your data journey alone. And I would love it if you didn't, because the Faunalists are here to help and here to connect with you. It's truly one of my favorite things about being a Faunalist is connecting with all the people doing animal advocacy work in their organizations. It's always so exciting. And you can connect with us through our one-on-one office hours. So through our office hours, you can reach one of our research scientists or me, your trusty resource director, to ask specific questions. You can come to us with questions big or small, and we'll either point you in the right direction if we know that the data already exists, or we'll help you dig. We'll use our finely honed research skills to find sources, triangulate data, and give you some jumping off points. We can also help you design your own research that will help you answer more specific questions that might apply directly to your work. And you can find out more information about that, including the meeting links in our on our office hours page. Finally, we also offer the Faunalytics Ambassador Program, which is which are free customizable presentations for your animal advocacy organization, group, or club. Our goal is really simple: to promote and support the use of research in the animal protection movement. So whether you're a grassroots activist, a longtime advocate, a journalist, a university student, or an educator, we have a selection of data-driven presentations to choose from, and each is geared to help you understand unique areas of advocacy in more depth. So check out the ambassador page for more information as well. And with that, I will throw it back to Jay.
Amazing. Thank you, Carl. I have, somewhat biased, but I've always argued that there are two categories of unsung heroes in our movement: researchers, of course, but also in undercover investigators. And I'm just very glad that we're drawing more attention to the work that they do and the impact that they have, and putting some structure behind it, because I feel like that's what's been lacking in terms of looking at investigations and their impact over the many years. So thank you for working on that. And now I think we have some time to open it up for questions. We've had a few questions come in via chat. I think we can accept questions. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, orally as well. But first, I want to kick things off, take the moderator privilege, and ask a question of my own. And this one is for Brooke. And it's around our strategic plan, which is, I'm excited about all of it, but I'm especially excited about that coordination piece. And that's something that I've thought about for many years, never really undertook as part of my role at Faunalytics. And I'm so glad to see that we're doing it now. But I also know that it's, Faunalytics is well positioned to help lead that, but it's very much a movement-wide effort. And so I'm curious if you had any thoughts on how the other advocates or people who represent organizations on this call might plug into that effort or somehow support that effort.
Yeah, thanks, Che. I agree. I'm so excited about our focus on increasing collaboration because we see a big appetite for this in our movement, which is really wonderful. I feel like we're more connected and collaborative than ever before. But in the research branch of the movement in particular, we know there's a desire for this. We know there's a desire to be more strategic and a willingness to team up so that our efforts go even further. And we've heard this from not only our fellow research organizations, but also from academics who really want to make sure their work is meaningful and impactful. So, how can you help? In the future, we're going to undertake a few initiatives. One of them that's happening sooner rather than later is we're looking into creating a sciences track at the AVA Summit. And that's really exciting so that we can coordinate on what we're presenting to advocates and make it be really smooth and impactful for any attendees. And the big initiative that we have under this coordination umbrella is working with other researchers on a collaborative research agenda for the movement. We think that teaming up and making sure our respective research plans work together can really improve opportunities not just for collaboration, but it will also ensure we're not duplicating efforts and not wasting resources. So, again, there's a big appetite for this. Researchers already play so wonderfully together. We all play so nicely together, and we all have spaces where we can be in touch with one another, but we're not yet proactively planning. So, if you are a researcher who would like to be involved in this initiative to create a more coordinated research ecosystem, please reach out to us. Reach out to us. You can raise your hand in the chat. You can reach out to us via our contact form. You can reach out to Allison directly. Hopefully, someone will drop her email again. We really want to know who's excited about this and involve you in our efforts in the year ahead. And if you are an advocate but not a researcher, one way you can help with this is by providing your feedback. We know there's a lot of surveys floating around there, and everybody wants to know what you think, which is very exciting. And we know that that can also lead to survey fatigue, but it's so important for us researchers to know what it is you need, what it is you find actionable to ensure that our research is really going to make a difference for you on the ground. So when the time comes, we hope that you'll share your research needs and ideas with us.
Nice. Thank you, Brooke. I also saw one question in the chat around social media. I think this might have been from Jessica. If so, hi, Jessica. This was about sort of what our plans are. She wrote, "Would love to talk more about social media and its impact on diet change. I know there are some studies already, but would love to know if more social media research is planned and with what end goal." And I think Carl and Andrea addressed this a little bit on chat, but I thought, Allison, you might have something to add, and if not, no worries. But I know that we have something planned around this next year that you touched on, and just do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Yes, yeah, I think Andrea was covering it really well in the chat. Andrea Polanco is going to be the lead researcher on the study that we do. It's starting very soon, actually, where we're looking at the short term and the long term effects of different advocacy strategies. And this is a follow-up to a previous study that was done, but Andrea has been kind of doing a really comprehensive look at kind of what advocacy should we include? What are the most common types of tactics that are being used? And it's become very clear to us that many of the tactics we need to look at in this newer study need to be social media based because so much is about like digital organizing now. So much of the communication strategies are being done not just with like static social media posts, but in reels and video content that's looking to engage in different ways. And so we're still finalizing the design for that study, but Andrea was kind of pointing out that we have several planned experimental conditions in that study where we will look at different types of social media kind of tactics. And I think we're still settling on a final design, but it's become clear that even looking more in a more nuanced way at several different kind of even just social media videos and what kinds of videos. And we're planning to look at things like animal sanctuary or like rescue kinds of videos, dodo types of video content, if you've seen that on your feed before, explainer or educational videos, investigation videos that kind of document conditions in farms. And so we're planning to include kind of as many different kinds of this social media content as possible. And a lot of that has been guided by feedback that Andrea has been getting directly from advocates who use these kind of tactics. Um, but for those of you who Jessica, I think it was you maybe who was interested in this, if you have further feedback for us, we'd love to hear how to make this study as useful as possible, because it has become clear to us that better understanding the social media landscape will be a really important part of doing this study well.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, I there's more questions. I just want to touch on them, but briefly, I know Jessica a little bit from our work previously, and she thinks quite deeply about social media. So I'm encouraged and optimistic that she'll be in touch and share her thoughts. Another question that we had, which is maybe a challenging one. I might put it toward Carl if he's interested in answering it. But the question is, Big Ag started a war against veganism. Where do I go for getting reliable data and analysis of the when, why, and how?
That is a great question, and if you're asking for reliable data on when, why, and how Big Ag has started the war against veganism, it It's been ongoing for a very long time. And if you look through our research library, you'll find numerous sort of instances of, blogs and analysis that touch on this. Most recently, we did a blog called Big Ag, Big Bucks, which is looking at how the USDA granting system is essentially used to further concentrate animal production in a very small handful of very large companies. I believe that the URL for that is faunalytics.org/USDA grants analysis, or it might just be grant analysis. But someone will post that in the chat. And if you'd like to know more about sort of Big Ag's lobbying efforts, you can certainly connect with me during office hours, and I can send you a pile of links about that as well.
Nice, thank you. Great answer to a difficult, potentially question. Another question that came up, which is, what is the role of research in shaping movement strategy and in potentially influencing funders to consider new or novel approaches beyond what is presently popular or considered the most effective? And I'll invite others to weigh in on this as well, but I'll take a quick shot at this question, which is that it's very much a mixed bag, right? I mean, funders are just like advocates. They're very diverse. They have different theories of change, different approaches. Some of them are more open or less open to updating their positions based on research than others. But I feel like overall, we have very much seen more of a trend toward data supported decision making, even among funders. And you see groups like Centera funders and others that are very much data oriented as well for our movement. So that has been a mixed bag over many years, but in my opinion, has become much more reliably data driven in recent years. And I invite Brooke or others to weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Che. I also would say Faunalytics, a lot of our research, as Allison talked about, our first audience are going to be animal advocates working on the ground. So funders are certainly advocates to us. They're certainly part of this ecosystem, but our primary goal is making sure that our work is supporting animal advocates who are actually doing the activism and advocacy that leads to change. So our work isn't quite as focused on influencing funders. However, our animal product impact scales resource was definitely utilized by a lot of folks more in the venture capitalism space, which is exciting. And I would say Rethink Priorities does a great job in helping funders figure out where they'll have the most impact. But in terms of your question, kind of zooming out, what is the role of research? We actually researched this. Surprise. Faunalytics did research to figure out what the role of our research is. And influencing strategy is one of the five main ways that advocates use research. Other ways include kind of providing verification and validation of their work, data to back up what they're saying, to influence their decision making, to build collaborations. But shaping movement strategy is one of them. And I think when you think about research at that level, it's really about that collaborative effort that we were talking about earlier. If we want organizations to use our research to shape strategies, we need to be in communication and collaboration with those orgs, which is why we're leaning into that so heavily in 2026.
Carl, I think I missed the specific question, but there was something about AI synthesis and a question for you, I believe. Would you mind addressing that?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think Tushar was asking about our friend Tushar, who's been in touch with Faunalytics for many years, and whom I know from long ago in the Toronto animal rights scene. Tushar was asking if our synthesis project is, I believe he was asking if our synthesis project is AI driven. And yes, so one of the things that we've been working on with Kyle Barrand of AI Impact Hub and through an initiative with Stray Dog Institute is creating a way of focusing an AI specifically on our library. And the reason for doing so is because our library is already a collection of, 6,000 vetted and summarized and edited and checked resources that we could essentially focus an AI to only draw from this pool and to provide synthesis of an issue based on that pool of data. It's done in a little bit of a different way than a traditional LLM, which would sort of just be searching the internet and retrieving things from the internet. This would actually be retrieved from a specific database that has been created just from our resources. So it's a bit of more of a source grounded model if you know what that means. And if you don't, essentially it's just an AI that specifically references the Faunalytics database only. So that's what we're working on. And because people are getting so used to seeing AI overviews as part of their search, we're thinking about ways of integrating into our search functionality, as well as providing other options to interact with it.
Thank you for taking that on. How are we doing on time, folks? Do we have time for one or two more questions? I'm getting the thumbs up from Brooke. So excellent. I saw one from Taylor that just popped up into the chat. I'll just read the sort of question part of it. Would Faunalytics conduct more nutrition health research in the future? If not, who in the movement is best positioned to fill that gap? Not a surprising question given Taylor's focus. Not sure who is best to handle
Hmm.
that question.
I can jump in, and because we've gotten this question before about why our library doesn't cover as much nutrition research, and part of it is because none of us are nutritionists, so it's a little bit more difficult for us to suss through the research and get a better understanding of its quality. Another reason is that it's an incredibly fast moving and high volume area of research. So there are new research studies being published all the time, and often they can be contradictory or have different findings, and it can just be very difficult to stay on top of. That being said, one of the subjects on my short list of upcoming Faunalytics fundamentals has been a vegan nutrition fundamentals, which would be a sort of a regularly updated resource that would bring together a bunch of different data on nutrition and health, without having us be on the sort of proverbial treadmill of having to keep up with all of the data constantly and add it to our library.
And I happen to see a thumbs up from Taylor on that. So positive initial feedback. I think this will be our last question, unless anybody has a burning question they want to jump in with. Someone wrote that, quote, I feel research on public opinion is important on what lands with them as far as our messaging. What's the most effective ways for the general public to absorb our messaging? And again, I think that's something that many phonolytic studies have touched on over the years, largely around vegetarianism, veganism, plant-based eating, etc. But I know that there are probably a few standout studies. Would anyone on the research team like to chime in and either address that question or point to any specific resources?
I'm trying to think of, Carl, do we have an existing synthesis or like summary of best messaging practices? I think we do maybe have a few. Um,
I'm so sorry. I was responding to a question in the chat. Uh,
Multitasking.
yes. Can you remind a synthesis of messaging on what in
like
particular?
best messaging practices. Like, I feel like there were some review blogs about this and some other things.
Yeah, we certainly have some, and I would say like there's a lot on messaging throughout the different editions of the Tactics and Practice series. So we have editions on social media advocacy, plant-based defaults, vegan challenges, vegan documentary and video, and then a giant resource related to the science of making and keeping vegans and vegetarians. So all of those different editions have messaging, to one degree or another. But I'm not sure about a blog that would just be about messaging per se.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've also covered studies by Animal Ask, related to like narrative framing and messaging, and all of those can be found in our library. I'll do some digging and pop some links in the chat.
I see in the chat someone plugging Animal Think Tank too, which is a great messaging resource. They primarily do message testing in there. in their work. And I think I will also say, just like from conversations with advocates this year, it's become clear that in the United States, especially, there's a lot of interest and concern in understanding how to effectively message in a very complicated political landscape, where the narrative certainly has shifted a lot, especially like in response to like the Make America Healthy Again kind of messaging that is often extremely pro-meat. And so I think there's also just an existing and continuing need for messaging studies to kind of better understand kind of what works right now, which is why we have some potential messaging studies on our radar for next year for exactly that reason.
Yeah, thank you both for taking that question, which is not the easiest one to answer because messaging is basically a part of all of the studies we do. It's just a question of whether it's the focus of it or sort of tangential to it. I am being told that's all the time we have for questions today. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us, for engaging with our research and our resources. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say that, of course, the work that we do is all free. Everything we talked about today and that we plan for next year is free to advocates. All the tools, resources, etc., that we provide, we can only do that thanks to the generosity of people and supporters and donors like yourself. And we do have an opportunity between now and the end of the year with a $25,000 match. I am, in addition to being a monthly donor, I will also be making a year-end donation. And so I very much you will all join me in making some sort of contribution, whatever your means allow, to Faunalytics by the end of the year. And so thank you so much for your support. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for engaging with our resources. And thank you to the team for being the amazing people that you are.